Good morning. How's everybody doing today? I'm joined by Mike Hogan, one of the top agents in the country, brokers, agents, team leaders, you name it. Mike's been around many years, been very successful. We're going to get into some of the top traits that we're seeing with listing agents that are successful, that are closing deals, listing lots of houses, getting lots of deals sold in a challenging market. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, in case people don't know. Most people already know, but let's get in a little bit of that, and then we'll jump into some questions, and we'll get this thing going.
Yeah, first off, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me on. It's always a good time to join you guys. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
A little bit about me. I don't like to talk about myself a ton, but just to give you a little bit of background, I've been in the business for about 25 years now. I originally got into real estate as an investor, and then just made the move into brokerage, and started my team just after the 2008 2009 melee, and really started growing in about 2010. Back then I was a single agent, probably doing 50 to 100 deals a year. Did pretty well, and just started growing by necessity. And today we're a little bit bigger organization. I think last year we did just shy of 1,000 deals. Probably be just over that this year. We'll see how rates go this year. But we should be just over 1,000 deals this year. In the height of COVID, we had gotten up to about 125 agents on the team. We've right-sized the business now. We're very much a lead forward company, so we do a lot with internet leads. And so for us, right sizing, making sure that we have the right agent count for the number of leads is critical. So we're down now, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 85 to 90 agents today.
Okay. Awesome. And by the way, I love that background. That's
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is one of my favorite places. At the end of the day, I'm like, what would everybody rather look at? My kitchen in my background, or maybe a wine wall or something. So I went with the wine wall. I think it's a much better
yeah,
background.
good choice. Good choice. So Mike, you mentioned leads have been a big part of your business. Supplying your agents with leads. What are some of the lead sources that you've used in the past, and kind of your experiences with those sources?
So we started on Zillow in 2010, back before Zillow was cool. I don't know if that's cool today or not, but we started back in 2010. We got on Realtor.com in 2014. We've had a love-hate relationship with all lead sources over the years. Those are our two biggest, and we've tried all kinds of other ones. We're constantly testing new ones, just seeing what's going to work. Seller connections is one of our biggest ones that we're doing right now. So we're really big fans there. And then we've got a few other ones that we try, but again, it's the two biggest ones are Zillow, Realtor.com, but then we're always trying new things just to see what happens.
Gotcha. And then in terms of we're talking about listings and listing agents and how to be successful with generating listings and closing deals. What do you think in terms of your experience through the years, being a listing agent yourself and working with lots of different agents? Like, what do you think separates top listing agents from kind of the rest of the pack?
Great question. This is something that, I think about a lot when coaching our agents on listings. And I think one of the biggest things is first off, is confidence. And honestly, confidence is not something that you gain in a couple of months of doing this business. It's something that you gain over years typically. Understanding when you go in, you can walk out of that listing appointment and say, you make the decision whether you're going to work with that client or not. If you've got that type of confidence, then you tend to do well. The best ones know their worth, they know the market, they have the ability to sell a property, and they know they have that ability, and that just translates into confidence. I think
So,
that's the biggest one. And along with that, just good communicators, knowing how to talk to the clients, knowing how to talk to clients in the way clients want to be talked to. And I think that's a big thing. Market savvy, they know what's going on with the market at all times, especially for the area that they're working with. Yeah, they may not always be an expert in every neighborhood in their market, but when they go into that listing appointment, they're an expert in that particular area that they're working on. And I think that's crucial. And then on top of that, all of that, I think you got to have somebody who's charismatic and personable. At the end of the day, people work with people that they like. At the end, we all probably give, roughly the same numbers in terms of what a property can list for. It's no secret that that part's fairly easy. But I think people tend to want to work with people that they like. And I think just being that person that they like and being a normal person and not trying to oversell, I think that's critical.
You talk about confidence, and I'm a big believer in preparation leads to confidence. And you kind of touched on it, right? Like understanding the market conditions. Would you say that would be a key in building confidence is just being prepared? Because that's the questions, right? Like if I'm an agent and I'm watching this and I want to generate more listings and you're telling me I need to be confident, the first thought that comes to my mind is, okay, so how do I build that confidence? What do I do to build the confidence to go out there and present?
It's truly, it's no other market. I mean, waking up every day, looking at your MLS, looking at what's sold, what hasn't, what's come back on the market, what's expired, why are they expiring, what's being withdrawn, knowing all of that information on a daily basis, literally being an expert in the market. And let's be real, that's like real estate 101. We should all be doing that anyway. But yeah, I would say absolutely being prepared and knowing the market and being able to articulate what's going on in the market is critical for confidence.
Well, you'd say like the key habits and strategies that agents, top listing agents are using is just like understanding the market, um, knowing what's out there, understanding the competition, and then having also the confidence to be able to say like, well, maybe I don't know the answer to this particular question, but I can get
I
that
lost you
answer
there.
for you. Oh, can you hear me? How about now?
I threw it up, but I just lost you. Still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, I don't have you. I'm not sure what's up.
Hello, 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 hello. I'm here. Can you see me or hear me? You gotta love technology. It's a beautiful thing. Okay,
I
everyone else can
totally
hear
just
us.
lost you. Hold
You
on.
lost me? Okay.
Try this again.
Yeah, everybody else can hear us. But I'll kind of tap into this a little while Mike is getting things situated. I think it's important to yeah, just having the confidence to be able to answer questions. And oftentimes we may not know the answer to those questions, but knowing where I can find those answers and tapping into if I'm working on a team, working with my team leader, working with my broker to have the right questions ready and really just be prepared to either answer those questions or find the answer if I don't know it. And then just real quick on presentation because I think that's really important too, right? Like you mentioned, being charismatic, being able to present, being a good conversationalist. Are there any tips on that part? Because that's key, right? Because a lot of times we're going to go into a listing appointment. There's three or four other agents that I need to compete with, right? So how do I get in there and really just make that connection? And before you answer, I think one of the ways is just kind of learning about that client, learning about their background, what's important to them. Look that person up, look up the property, look up when they purchased it, like go out and look at like permit history. Have since they own the property, have there been any permits pulled on that property? And you can ask questions that other agents probably aren't going to do. Most agents aren't going to do that. So what would you say in terms of like just being able to present, like learning presentation skills, and then just some of the key things to maybe like have with you in your presentation?
Go along with what you said. I mean, looking up the property, looking up the credit history, all that stuff, obviously critical. One of the other things I do is always check out their social media, just see what I can learn from their social media. Sometimes I can find them, sometimes I can't. I think that's important. But I think for me, what I found when I get to the house, one of the first things I do when I walk in the house with them, obviously we do the introductions and ask them where we're going to be sitting so I can put my stuff down. And then I ask them to give me a quick tour of the house. And as they're giving me the tour of the house, like I'm looking for things that we have in common, whether it's, a college team that they have up on the wall or they've got pictures of their dogs. I'm a dog man. I love dogs, and we can bond on that. I'm just looking for things that we can bond on. And in that first few minutes, I'm also trying to put them at ease because when you come into a seller's house, they're on the defense. Like you're a guy there that's trying to sell them on how much you're going to sell their house for. And they realize that. So I try to quickly put them at ease and make them understand that, look, guys, I'm here to have a conversation. Just want to understand what's going on in your world that's made you call me today. But try to come up with those commonalities as you're walking through the house and try to make them laugh. Try to get a quick giggle out of them. In fact, one of the things I always do, and I do this on every listing appointment I've ever been on, probably since the very early stages, is I'll ask them as I'm pulling out my listing agreement and I'm pulling out the comps that I'm going to show them and so forth when we sit down. I pull out their tax assessment and I always say, here's your tax assessment. I'm sure you're painfully aware of what your taxes are. And as corny as it is, they all laugh at that. And it's just another thing to kind of lighten them up a little bit and get them to understand that you're a person, you're there to talk to them, you're there to help them understand what's going on with the market. And if you take that approach, I think it's critical. And that, to your question, makes you more personable, makes you more likable, and makes them more likely to want to work with you.
And I think also practicing your presentation too, right? If you haven't gone on a bunch of listing presentations, and whether you have or not, I think it's important to kind of like, because it's almost like it's like a job interview, and it's almost like an audition, right? So if I
Yep.
practice that presentation and I'm in front of my wife or my spouse or whoever, and or you're in front of the mirror and practicing it, role playing it, again, it's that preparation that's going to lead to confidence.
You
Um,
gotta be careful though, which is one thing I tell my agents and I practice myself because I'm a big fan of practicing. I'll practice in front of the mirror. I do it on my cars and driving on the road. But you also have to be very careful to not sound canned. And
mm,
I think that's something that's critical that comes across as personal too, because we always talk about role playing, and role playing I think is super smart, but you have to be careful that you're not saying the same thing every single time, that you use a structure and you follow the structure as opposed to necessarily following a specific script, because people can pick up and people sound canned.
Absolutely. And we work with Seller Appointment Hub, and we're going to get into Seller Appointment Hub. And there's a lot of scripts around Seller Appointment Hub that are being used to reach out to homeowners and book appointments and book lots of generate lots of listings. My thought on scripts is script is like a skeleton, right? Like if you think of a person, everybody has a skeleton, but all of our body types are different, right? Some of them are tall, short, big, little, small, whatever. So it's all about kind of personalizing that foundational script that you have and creating more conversational outcome, right? um
Great.
Real quick, I do want to touch on this because we chatted on it before we start talking about your experience with Seller Appointment Hub. It's like the elephant in the room with Rocket Mortgage purchasing Redfin. I don't want to go too crazy on this, but in case
Yeah.
you guys don't know, it's some big news out right now in the industry, and we'll just touch on it really quick if you guys don't mind. Rocket Mortgage purchasing Redfin for 1.7 billion. Let's just touch on that really fast, guys, because I think it's huge. And your thoughts on it, Mike, as an industry expert, and just yeah, what do you think about that?
I think it makes total sense. I'm actually surprised that somebody hadn't made this play earlier. I think it definitely makes sense. I think what's going to be interesting and is an unknown right now is how the industry is going to respond. Is this going to be the thing that touches off a wave of consolidation? Is Zillow going to buy EXP? And I say that jokingly. I'm going to catch all the EXP hate mail now. But I mean, seriously, I mean, is this going to kick off a wave of consolidation? That's what I'm interested in seeing. But I think the move makes sense, quite honestly. You've got two great product companies that get together. Maybe the service levels aren't what they need. Putting the two together, maybe that helps. But I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's just a huge traffic play too, because Rocket Mortgage, looking to get into the
Data
real,
play.
yeah, data
It's a data
traffic,
play.
right?
It's a
Data
massive
play.
data. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing about all the traffic, mortgage traffic that's being generated by Rocket Mortgage, and now on the real estate side with Redfin, I mean, it's just like it's huge. So yeah,
And
just
let's be
just
real. I mean, what one thing that Renfin has done right is their website and their app. And I'll tell you, when I talk with consumers like the Redfin app almost as much as they like the Zillow app or the Realtor.com app. So I mean, in terms of just that consumer eyeballs, they're getting a lot of consumer eyeballs just because they like that app so much.
yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I don't want to get too off track here. Let's just jump into kind of what initially drew you to sellerappointmenthub.com for your business.
I mean, listings are the name of the game, and that's the that's the holy grail of leads is seller leads. And over the years, I've seen a lot of companies get into the space and try to do it. Zillow did it for a long time, Realtor.com did it for a long time, and neither one really did it right. I mean, the overriding model for seller leads for so long were home value leads. And those just never really took off. Now, I think Zillow's done a much better job lately with some of their seller leads. But I've always been looking for what is that next thing that we can do? What's the next seller lead that I can use to provide to my agents to give them a leg up over the competition. So that's what drew us to it. We wanted to see it, test it, see how it performs, see what the clients were like. You know, are the leads? I hate to say this, are the leads good leads? I know everybody's going to yell at me and say that all leads are good leads. It's just processes, the follow processes, the work. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to see, are these, you know, are they as good as they sounded online what everybody was talking about? So I want to give it a shot.
And what's cool about Seller Appointment Hub is that they're actual appointments, right? So their homeowners are being vetted, they're being screened, they're having long conversations, and then an appointment is generated with a homeowner who wants to discuss selling their home with a real estate agent. But like Mike, so what has your experience been so far with the platform?
Um, it's been, I'll just say it's been positive. We've been doing it for a few months now. I'd say most of we don't have anything on, we don't have any listings live yet. I'll say that, but we have several that are in various stages of being ready to list. And what I found with most of these leads or most of these appointments, you're right to correct me on these are actual appointments, not just leads. What I would say with most of the people that we're talking about is they're typically anywhere from 2 to 5 months away from being able to list or being ready to list. They're at that point where they're thinking that they want to list, they're doing their research, so they're reaching out to say, hey, you know, I want to talk with somebody about this. So we've got several people that are in various stages of being ready to go. And I think over the next couple of months, as we get deeper into the spring market, that's when we're going to start seeing them start to pop.
And then so like how are the typical conversations? Like, you know, the appointment's booked for you. There's like a text intro that happens between the homeowner after they've had the conversation with Seller Appointment Hub, and then it goes to you as an introduction. What are some of those conversations sounding like, you know, feeling like, and just overall? Um,
It's nice that that it's already set for me. I mean, that's always the hardest part of working with any type of lead is that initial communication. You get some information, you wonder if it's good information. I mean, I will say one good thing about the platform is the double verification, making sure that we've got good information so that when we're calling, we know that we're calling the right person. But the conversations have been super easy. They're expecting us to reach out to them. They know, you know, they acknowledge that they have requested information, which honestly, with a lot of leads, as you know, you call them and they're like, "How did you get my number?" Like, well, you literally just pushed a button and said you wanted information. But a lot of times that's you know, when you call them, they act like they don't know who you are. And in many cases, I think that's probably true. In this situation, that's not the case. Like when I call, they know that they're expecting a call and they're ready to start talking about listing the house. They may not be ready to list tomorrow, which obviously would be great if they were, but most of them know that they're thinking about listing over the next couple of months, want to get an idea for how much their house is worth. So we get that text up front. So it gives us the time that we need to pull up the information that we need to be able to get in touch with them and call them right away because you know we try to get in there within the first few minutes. I don't want it to be too soon, but I want it to be, you know, you want the time to be just right. And you know, it took us a few to learn how to do that correctly, but once we got that down, I think the conversations went well, but literally it's just them wanting to know a little bit more about what the process is like and how much they can list their house for.
yeah, and I think it's a big. You mentioned something there. It's kind of a big point there because we're so used to speed to lead, right? Like when a lead comes in, they filled out a form. We're kind of like frantic. I'm like panicking. I need to get back to them right away, right? Because they're going to call. You know, a lot of times those leads are shared, like from Zillow or whoever. They're sharing them with multiple agents. So with this, it's a little bit more of a, I guess, because it's not necessarily a referral, but it's a very warm transfer. And so, you know, the key there is just approaching it with the right timing, like you said, not necessarily blasting away and calling immediately, because a lot of times those conversations have been had. There's 10, 15, 20-minute conversations. So if we call immediately after that text intro and kind of requalify them, then it becomes like it's a fatigue for the seller. They've already gone through that. So yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. It's just kind of, responding to that text, acknowledging the text, and then, maybe having some kind of message in there saying that you're going to send them like a pre-listing package, or are you doing any of that right now, like in your process?
Yeah, we definitely we FedEx pre-listing packages every time. So and that's with every listing for all of ours. So we get that out pretty quickly, so that it goes out. They usually get it in 24 hours. And then we're testing now whether we should call the same day the text comes in, or should we wait until after they receive the listing package. And that's one that's, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Right now, we're calling the day of, but I think it might be interesting to see what happens if we don't call the day of. What if we send them the listing package and overnight mail, they get it the next day, and then we call them after they're supposed to receive it. Within, we know that they're going to receive it in the morning, so maybe at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. We reach out to them. So there's some testing that's going on in terms of what's the best way to communicate with them.
Yeah, and what's cool about these appointments is that they're totally exclusive. We don't have to worry about, some other agents calling them. Of course, I mean, they can go click on some form or something, but they're totally exclusive. There's not 15 other agents calling them. So yeah, you can kind of feel comfortable in knowing that they are expecting a call, and they're kind of waiting for you to reach out to them. Like in your opinion, just comparing Seller Appointment Hub with other lead sources, what would you say in terms of like just overall process or differences that you're seeing with Seller Appointment Hub versus other platforms?
First thing is, like I mentioned, that they know you're calling. They're expecting you to reach out to them. I think also that the information is double verified. So when we call, we know that we've got the right number. If we text them, that we got the right information for them. But I think it's just they're more willing to talk. They don't feel like they're talking to a massive call center. They feel like they're talking one on one with somebody, and it tends to be a more personal conversation.
Yeah. And just I guess just again in terms of the quality of those appointments, you kind of touched on it earlier. But overall, like, the value that you feel Seller Appointment Hub brings just in terms of quality and timeline and so on and so forth. Just if you could just touch on that.
I mean, I think, yeah, just going back through, reiterating what I've said on that before. I mean, when I call somebody and they're expecting my call and they have a legitimate conversation about real estate, to me, that's a great lead. That's a great conversation to have. I think the only problem I've got is I just want more of them. That's the biggest thing, And I say that jokingly, but it's the truth. I mean, as somebody who deals with a lot of leads, what's important to me is scale.
Right.
I've got plenty of lead sources that can give me 5 leads a month. I need the lead sources that can give me 150 a month.
Right.
And so that's always my thing is like, how do I get more of them? Huh? And I know what you're going to say, Mike, if you spend more, you can get more. I totally get it. But that's really what it comes down to. I just wish that I had more of them.
Yeah, and the thing with the volume, it's because it's unlike a form fill, like somebody who fills out a form. Like when I was buying with Realtor, we were doing like thousands of, I mean, there was like thousands. It's overwhelming number of leads, right? Just because it's easier to get somebody to fill out a form versus an actual appointment, right? And like the just in terms of conversion, what is it like average 2 to 3% with online leads that fill out forms versus like with this, it's like, typically it's about 20% that we're seeing in terms of across the board nationwide. So the conversion rate is definitely there. And it's really about
With the
quality.
conversations we're having, we're going to be just north of that, to be honest with
Oh wow. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And like, typically when you're having those conversations, like what are you normally saying? And then are you working those yourself, Mike, or do you have like a team that works them, or how do you kind of manage that?
you. All over the both. So I've got a team. I typically have a couple of agents on my team that are experienced with listings, take new lead sources. That way I can take out I can take out the variance of, hey, I've got somebody who doesn't really know how to deal with these type of leads. I can take them out of the equation and I'm just dealing with people who are super experienced. So we do have a couple of agents specifically that take these, but I also jump in on some of these, just because I like to see firsthand what those conversations are like. When especially if I hear things, and this is not just with Solar Appointment Hub, this is with others as well. When I start hearing things like, they weren't expecting me to call, these leads are trash, all that type of stuff. You hear that all the time. Way back when I started jumping on calls when we started testing new lead sources, just so that I could see it myself, because I can, there's not many leads out there that I can't convert myself, and I've done it many, many times. So I like to get on there and do some of myself. So we've done both.
Gotcha. And most of these appointments are with homeowners that want to list their property, right? But I know you're big on
Absolutely.
the investment side. Like you do a ton
Yeah.
of investment deals, and there's a lot of agents out there that have investor clients that they work with. How
Yep.
do you feel about because again, the traditional model with Seller Appointment Hub is always going to be focusing on listings with agents, but there also is an option that is out there with Seller Appointment Hub that provides cash offer opportunities as well. So with a homeowner that necessarily doesn't necessarily want to list, but they want to do a cash offer. Are you taking those from Seller Appointment Hub, or are you just
Nah, I'm
focusing
gonna tell you what, I
on
didn't
the
know about that, but that's fantastic. Send them on. We do quite a bit of cash buyer offers ourselves. In fact, we're revamping that section of our website right now. I've got somebody on board that's their sole job right now, is essentially building that side of the business. So yeah, I mean, if we can get those, I would be all about it. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah, you didn't know that? Okay, so we're gonna have to talk about that. So let me ask you
Yeah,
this, because there's a lot of questions that people ask about, well, objections. And this isn't just with Seller Appointment Hub. This is across the board with listings in general. Is, a lot of times homeowners have a certain price in mind, they have a certain thought process in mind, or it's not always in line with what we want, right? So like one of the things with like Seller Appointment Hub is like, wish you could have somebody that is like, okay, come on over, I'm the seller. I'll go ahead and print out the listing agreement. I'll have it ready for you with a cup of coffee and some chocolate, and like we'll sit down and we'll
yeah.
sign. So, how do you deal with people that, let's say, are like overpriced, or they tell you, know what, I don't necessarily want to list right now, but they do because they've booked an appointment, like they want to meet with you. They've So how do you overcome those? Because a lot of agents, quite frankly, like give up on that in the beginning,
Yep.
and then you see
Yep.
like a month later that house is listed. I'm like, oh my gosh, like and I've been guilty of it too. Like you just kind of give up, and you feel that sort of the energy from the seller, and it just doesn't feel right. But then, dang it, they listed it.
You
So
don't have to be the pushy sales guy to keep pushing on it either. If they're giving you those signs, and I've done this too, just like you. Sometimes they give you those signs that they're really just not into it, and you're like, I don't want to be that pushy sales guy that keeps pushing them, so you kind of back off. Again, I've done that too. But to your question, if first part, there's kind of two parts to that question. One was, what if they don't? What if our numbers and their numbers don't align? And typically in that situation, I sit down with them. I'm showing them the numbers and showing them what the comps look like. Usually, I will, if I have to, like I will have. Sometimes I have it on paper, obviously, but I like to open my computer and show them. I'm like, okay, let's go through everything that's sold, and you show me like where what you're seeing that's making you come up with that number. Normally, by having them look at the numbers together with you, they begin to understand. Now, they may not still agree with you, but they understand that their numbers are not correct. So that's what I typically like to do. I would say 6 out of 10 times it's effective, and they're like, okay, let's talk a little bit about strategy, because then I like to talk about pricing strategy. It's not just price; it's pricing strategy. Sometimes you want to price a little bit low because you want to get multiple offers. Do they need to sell today? If they need to sell today, then we need to be a little bit more aggressive. If it's a want to sell type of thing, then we can be a little bit more lax on it. So I like to talk with them about pricing strategy, and usually when I get into that and start talking about where they are in their journey and why they're selling, then they start to come around to what it actually needs to be. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, they want 950,000 and my number suggests 700 tops. You know, sometimes you just can't there's nothing you can do with that. And you just got to let that go. I mean, I'm a big believer in not taking a listing or not taking an overpriced listing just because I need a listing. And I think that goes back to the part we were talking about earlier with confidence. You've got to know that you have the ability to walk out of that listing appointment and you're willing to agree to not work with that person because it doesn't make sense. So sometimes you've got to be willing to do that. And again, I think that goes back to the confidence piece. But I would say 6 out of 10 times, if their numbers are well above mine, I can usually get them down by the process I just talked about. That was the first part of your question. There was a second part of your question, and my ADD is going off, and I don't remember what the hell you said.
Well, I want to. Well, I'm sure it'll pop into your head, and I'm going to ask you a couple more things. But by the way, guys, if anybody has questions, just any banter, any thoughts, any feedback, please just go ahead and ask in the Q&A. We'll try to get them answered for you guys. Really appreciate everybody being on. Want to really provide as much value as possible here. So I want to play around with you a little bit, okay? Because a lot of times sellers like try to justify, and I already know what you're going to say, but I want to do it anyways. They try to justify their price, right? So some of the things they'll say is like, well, okay, well, I added that covered patio, or I remodeled my kitchen. I added a new roof to this house, and just start listing out things that they've done. And, of course, like we know the answer, but like that is typically and they've got pride, right? And understandably so, and rightfully so. And so how do you deal with that? Like they start naming all these kind of things that they've done and
So typically what I like to do in that situation is first off, I acknowledge that the things that they did are nice. Hey, that roof over the patio, man, that is awesome. And then I'll go into overall that a lot of improvements don't necessarily add to the value of a property, like the numerical value of the property, but it'll add to the saleability. So I'll tell them, look, two properties that are side by side, identical, they're both 4 bedroom, 2 bath, they're both 2,500 square feet and they're both priced the same, but you've got this covered patio and you've got all these other things that you've done. You've got the sealed and conditioned crawl space and all these other things that don't necessarily add value, but they add to the saleability. That's going to help your house sell faster than that guy over there. So I typically explain it to them that way, and they usually get it. Sometimes, obviously, they still want to push it up, and depending on where we are with it, I'll give in a little bit, as long as they're still within my range that I like to be. But I think just explaining to them that hey, it doesn't help the value necessarily in this market, but it will help the saleability.
yeah. And speaking of like overpriced listings, there's like two schools, right? One is like what you mentioned, which I really respect, that which is like, hey man, I've got my standards. If I feel like this isn't going anywhere, I'm going to turn it away, and I've got the confidence to be able to say no. Then there's the other side, which is like, what's the saying? A sign in the yard is better than a sign in the trunk, right? So
Yeah.
for me, I'm kind of in the middle for that. And my thought is like, I won't necessarily take a way overpriced listing, but I will try to explain to the homeowner that, hey, look, the market determines the value of the property, right? And so if you want to list it here, I'm willing to do that, but we have an agreement that in X period of time, let's say 2 weeks, a month, we kind of agree and say if there's no offers on the property, the market's spoken, right? Yes. So at that point, then we need to do a price reduction down to what the real kind of like closer to the value of the property. Are you okay with that? And a lot of times people are, and that's kind of my approach that I take. But tell me your thoughts.
No, I'm in complete agreement with that. I'm not saying I've overpriced listing. I'm talking about the scenario where I said where somebody thinks that the property is worth 950 and I'm at 700, which you're not going to get them down to that price. I think so. Two ways of looking at that. One is, yeah, I am 100% agree. I always tell people that look, when we put the house on the market is going to tell us everything we need to know about where we decided to price it. If we put your house on the market on Thursday and by Sunday we have zero showings, there's a solid chance, assuming the market is strong, there's a solid chance that we just overpriced your property by a significant amount. But if we put it on the market on Thursday, we have a few showings over the weekend and into next week, but we still aren't getting any offers. It tells me we're in the ballpark, but we're still probably a little bit high. If we put it on the market and we get, a few showings and a couple of offers, it tells me we probably priced it where it should be. However, the risk of pricing it low is less than the risk of pricing it high because, Mr. Seller, if I price your house a little bit too low, then what's going to happen is the market is going to correct that price and you're going to get multiple offers. It's going to push up the price of the house. And not only is it going to push up the price of the house, you're also going to get other things that go in the contract that are just as important as price. Like you're going to get waived inspections and you're going to get waived appraisals and all kinds of things that you may not get when you only get one offer on the property. So I like that approach as well. So what you said, I'm dead on with that. The other thing is there are times when I have taken an overpriced listing and it was strategic. Maybe it's a neighborhood that I wanted to get into. It's an area that I haven't been able to get into in the past. And I've now got this opportunity to get this listing. And goes back to what you said. I've got a sign in the yard. And it gives me something to talk about when I'm talking with other sellers in that neighborhood. Whether it's I'm sending postcards out, I'm calling and circle dialing or whatever, it gives me something that I can talk about to get other listings in that neighborhood. So there are times when I will consider an overpriced listing, but generally speaking, that's a minority of the time that that happens, and it's a strategic decision to do that.
Okay. I want to kind of shift a little here. In terms of top individual agents focusing their energy in today's world when it comes to lead generation, like where do you think most agents should be focusing their time, energy, dollars, resources? Of course, like there's seller appointment hub, right? But are what else? Like where else? What else should they be focusing on in terms of generating both buyer and seller? I know we're focusing on sellers here, but we've got agents that probably work with both.
So, I believe in taking, getting on the low-hanging fruit, obviously. What's in your database? I think what's in your database is gold. And I think that first off, if anybody's on the call that doesn't have a database, like before you do anything else, that needs to get fixed because data is gold. I think the lead world is a great place to be. I will say it's hard to start off in the league world today. Most of the big players in the country that have been on internet leads have been on there for a long time and have been on there since leads were cheap when you could get a Zillow lead for $40 a lead. That's not happening today. So to start today is in that world is a little more difficult. So I think it's start with all the low hanging fruit. It's doing the things that we all used to do back in the day. It's doing open houses and being purposeful about open houses, not just sticking a sign in the yard and showing up at 11 and leaving at 1. It's going the day before and inviting everybody to come to your listing or sending out postcards to all those listings. That's being very purposeful about all of those things. So I think those are ways that people can generate business today other than just in the lead world. But I do think using the lead world to supplement what they're doing, I think is critical, especially when you can get something like Seller Appointment Hub that, it's not super expensive and it's you get somebody there you get somebody on the other end of the line who's really willing to talk about real estate. I mean, those are the types of leads that I think people should be focusing on, as opposed to, some of the ones, whether it be Google leads or Facebook leads, those types of things. Those are just a little bit more difficult to work.
Yeah, with seller appointment hub, it definitely is not a Google lead, not a Facebook lead, not a name, number, email address that you've got to chase down. And you kind of hit it on the head with database. With again, seller appointment hub, you've got pay as you go. There's no long-term contracts. You decide how many appointments you want to generate, and that's how many appointments you're going to get. And then it gives you an opportunity to nurture those folks. And that's the key, right? I mean, in terms of like what you're using for long-term nurture campaigns and kind of touching your database, if you will, what are some of those platforms that you're using right now, Mike, that help you get those hand raisers after you've had the initial relationship or introduction or appointment or lead or whatever the case may be?
First off, obviously you gotta have a CRM that's helping you with that. We use Follow Up Boss. I think most of the larger teams around the country is on Follow Up Boss. Those things have auto texting, auto emailing features. We also use Walopo. Walopo helps us a lot with that. They're constantly looking at our database, looking to see who's going to our website constantly, who's raising hands, who's asking for information. So it's helping us with that information. That's when I say, focusing on your database, I think, is important. And sometimes more leads isn't the answer. Sometimes it's figuring out ways to improve your lead conversion. And you can beat on agents all day long about converting the leads and calling people back and speed the lead and all those things, and following the scripts or not following the scripts or whatever. But sometimes you can systemize the that follow up also, and it helps the agent tremendously. So follow boss is our biggest, it's our CRM. We use YLOPO quite a bit. There's a lot of other ones out there that work just as well as YLOPO. But that's what we're using today.
Yeah. And would you say for someone that wants to come in, start purchasing leads, would you say it's better to focus on those low funnel opportunities first to make the biggest impact?
Absolutely. Well, and I think it depends on where you are in your agent journey, because there's sometimes when buying up funnel leads makes a lot of sense. For us, we look at Zillow, Realtor.com, Sell Appointment Hub, those types of things that are low in the funnel are things that are gonna, they're gonna create income in the next 2 to 3 months. And I would guess that most agents are thinking more about what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 months. Like when can I generate income? Most aren't thinking about what's going to happen 2 years or 3 years down the road. That's when those things like more like some of the Google leads, PPC leads, Facebook leads, some of that type of stuff comes into play. I mean, hell, in the past, we've actually bought rental leads because we can buy rental leads in an area of really high-end rents because we know that they can afford to spend $2,000 or $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month on renting a nice house, that they're probably going to be able to buy a house at some point as well. So we bought rental leads knowing that we're just going to put them in our system. Our agents aren't going to touch them. But we just let the system do the work for us over time. And over time, those people start to transact. So I think it depends on where everybody is in their journey. Most agents are probably going to want to focus on the down funnel leads, but there is a time and place for focusing up on the up funnel leads as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think, in terms of, and I agree with you, it's like, where can I find an opportunity where initially I can start out with as low funnel opportunity as possible. So that's what's going to give me the quickest bang for my buck. Because, it's like the market's changed. It's not 2020, 2021, 2019 anymore. Every dollar counts. So would you agree, like, in this sort of scenario, or with this scenario, is starting off with as low funnel as possible, and then building up your database, like you're saying, into something that will grow over time, and creating leverage to nurture those folks and build long-term, I guess, income down the road, ROI.
Absolutely. What I was just saying about where they are in their agent journey. If you're new, absolutely focus on down funnel leads, the low hanging fruit. That's not only in the lead world, but also in your real life. Like, who are your friends and family that are getting ready to buy? That's the same type of down funnel lead that we're talking about. It's the low hanging fruit. I think everybody, especially young in their career, should be focusing on those, but anybody who's thinking about what's going to happen, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, should be thinking about other stuff as well. But I think everybody that's fairly new to the business needs to worry about, making their mortgage payment over the next 6 months should be looking at down funnel leads for sure.
Yeah. And then as we wrap up, Mike, what advice we've talked a lot about Seller Appointment Hub, but for somebody who might be considering trying Seller Appointment Hub, what advice would you give to them, as they're considering that option for their business?
Just jump on, and you don't have to buy 100 leads a month. You can start with 5 leads, 10 leads. Figure out what works for your business. I mean, honestly, if you buy 10 leads and 8 of them convert, can you really handle eight new listings next month? I know everyone in the call is probably saying, hell yeah, I can handle 8 new listings. But I'd say I always start with testing before I go head over heels with something. And buy a few leads, see how it works for you. And if you find that you're having good conversations, you may not convert. Like we haven't converted one yet. We don't have a listing from one yet. But if you're having the conversations that gives you a good feeling that these are going to be good opportunities going forward, then go ahead and buy a few more. Or if some of them close, reinvest those funds to buy more. Don't just take it out, put it in your checking account. Actually reinvest into your business.
Yeah. We've got a couple questions, and guys, if you're gonna ask any questions, please now's the time. We're getting some questions. Are you also using canceled expired platforms like RedX, Vulcan 7, so on and so forth for expireds?
So I've done it in the past. I was a Red X, was it Sapphire or Onyx user. I've used all of them in the past. I did the multi-line dialers. Just not my thing. Honestly, I'm inherently a lazy person, so I like to I like to have things where the leads are sent to me without me having to work too hard for them. No, I joke about that, but I don't do it anymore. We have some agents that do it, and we certainly encourage it, but it's just not something that we make a part of our strategy anymore.
Okay. And then let's see, a couple other questions. Guys, these are awesome. Keep asking. Any way you could give a rough example of how much it costs for 10 appointments a month in a busy city? Well, I can answer that. The
You're gonna be better
appointment,
for that.
what's that?
You're gonna be a better one to answer that one.
Yeah. So it's so basically it's pay as you go. So the nice part about it is there's no long-term agreement. You would just say how many appointments you want, and it's $300 per appointment. And you just like I said, you would dictate how many appointments you want, and those appointments will be delivered to you, and then your card will be charged. It's not paid up front; it's pay as you go, which is another nice thing. And you're able to pause at any time. So if you've got you're on vacation, you've got some things happening, you can simply reach out to customer support. They'll pause your account for you, and and then you can turn it on and off as you please. But then again, the nice part here is these are actual appointments. It's not like a lead with a lead form. You go on Zillow and these companies, and with all due respect to them, they're great companies, great lead providers. But the cost for a lead on those platforms is like, I mean, I'm seeing Mike like sometimes like $900 per lead, and it's just like a name, number, and email address.
I'd say
So
that's probably the median right now. It's $900
the
a lead for
median
those.
price across the country right
For a
now is about
lead.
$900 per lead with just name, number, email. We're talking about appointments for $300 with an actual person that like wants to speak with an agent, booked an appointment, and so on. So yeah, so that's the answer there. But yeah, any other questions, guys? Feel free to ask. And then as we wrap up, so Mike, you're awesome, dude. You're great, man. You're
Appreciate you.
always a wealth of knowledge, always willing to share and help others in the industry. And you've been that way since I've known you, man. So really appreciate you coming on. And just for those that are watching, I mean, you're doing like 1,000 deals a year, but I'm sure you're always open to referrals. So that just tells
Absolutely.
about your market, Virginia, right? Virginia?
Yeah, so we're pretty much all over Virginia. We have brick and mortar offices in Charlottesville, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, and Williamsburg, Virginia. But we have agents all over the state, Northern Neck, Northern Virginia, Southwestern Virginia. We have agents all over the place, but those are our three offices. And we can if you've got a lead or a referral for somewhere in Virginia, there's a good chance that we have an agent in that market.
Awesome. All right. All right. Well, hey, Mike, thank you so much for your time, sir. I'm sure you've
Thanks,
got
brother.
lots of things
Appreciate
to
you.
do. Yeah. And guys, thanks again for joining. This is going to be posted on the Lab Coat Agents YouTube channel and in the group. So somebody asked, are we doing Puerto Rico? I don't think so at this time, but maybe down the road. So anyways, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. Was a great call, and Mike, really appreciate it, sir. Thank you.